Should the Lions trade back in round one? Let's talk Lions. Thank you for liking, for commenting, and subscribing if you are already not subscribed to the channel. Listen, draft day just keeps getting nearer and nearer. More near? Closer. Draft day just keeps getting closer and closer, and as we are coming up on it, yes, we are going to be talking a lot about the draft, different options and such. And so today, I wanted to specifically bring up the option for the Detroit Lions to trade back. Really what that looks like, what would benefit us the most, and the potential other teams at stake here. And so I just kind of wanted to run through that. Something I just wanted to throw out there to you is that I will be live streaming. So while the draft is happening, I will also be live streaming during that, watching it in real time. And so if that's something that you would like to join me for, you could catch it here on Let's Talk Lions. Now, let's get into today's video. The question is, should the Detroit Lions look to trade back in the draft? And if they should, what are the potential teams? Who are the potential suitors for them to trade with that gives most value to them, but to us as well? So, without any further ado, let's break it down. First and foremost, we know that Holmes is going to make this draft very interesting. Over the last 2 years, I would say, looking at the 2020 draft, looking at the 2019 draft, you and I, as Lions fans, I think we both knew who we were drafting, what we were getting ourselves into the day of, right? When Hockenson was picked, saw it coming from a mile away. I think we all did. I think we all knew that Matt Patricia wanted that tight end, that option for Matt Stafford, a guy who was able to block and catch. Hockenson was a phenomenal pick. I'm still very pleased with it, looking at it. However, you look at last year, we all knew after shipping Slay away that we would be choosing Jeff Okudah at the 3 spot. It was apparent. We knew it was going to happen. This year, however, I think it's safe to say that Holmes and company really are turning the tables on their head. And I don't know what to expect. There are so many variables, so many options, so many different things that could end up going down. And that's some of the stuff that I want to talk about over the course of the next couple weeks. But specifically today, we're going to hone in on the trading back during the draft. There's so many different options, variables, things that Holmes and company could do. Number one is simply picking the best talent on the board right at 7. Right? Like looking at 7 being like, hey, if Penei Sewell's on, we're picking him. Hey, if Waddle is on, we're picking him. Whoever the best, the most talented is on the board at 7, Holmes could pick him. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is I just see us picking the best wide receiver on the board in order to fill the gap that is, well, our wide receiver core. Or should I say, lack thereof. For whether it's Smith, Waddle, or Chase at the 7 spot, just trying to fill that void. Number 3 is either a linebacker or D lineman at the 7 spot. You guys all know that I am very partial towards Micah Parsons. I think his gameplay is incredible and is a lot of what we need here in Detroit. Looking at Micah Parsons, yes, he is my number 1. That's the guy that I would love to see come to the Detroit Lions to make the greatest impact right off the bat. Granted, there is let's just say, a slew of allegations surrounding the young man, similar to that of Pidgeotto casting a whirlwind attack. It's not pretty. It's not great. It's the worst, really, truthfully. And it is what it is. And so I don't think that we grab him. Is he the one that I would like at 7? Yes. Will we? Most likely not. The 4th option is the snagging a quarterback to sit under Jared Goff for the next year, maybe 2 years. That is the least likely of the 5 options that I'm looking at right now. However, it's definitely possible. I could see us, especially after listening to Anthony Lynn, he talked about getting a rookie QB to sit under a veteran. I could see us snagging somebody like Trey Lance, having him sit underneath Goff for 2-3 years, see what happens over the course of 2-3 years. Who knows? I don't love that option. In fact, I don't even like it. However, I could see it. I would rather just wait until next year, see what quarterbacks are coming in, and potentially be able to draft one of them depending on Goff's gameplay. But different story for a different day. And finally, the fifth option is to trade back with a team that is looking to fill that quarterback slot this year. And for these other teams, if they could just squeeze into that 7th spot overall and we trade back, we go down, I think that's where there is a viable option at hand. The 3 teams that I look at that I think are most viable for us to trade back with are A, the New England Patriots at pick 15, B, the Washington Football Team at pick 19, and C, the Pittsburgh Steelers at pick 24. Looking at Holmes, looking at the way that he acquires talent, what he was able to do in LA, looking at Dorsey's work with Cleveland, Kansas City, these guys are talent hunters. And so looking at them, they have never solely relied upon the first round. That's not where, yes, they've made some great decisions in the first round. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they haven't. But what I am saying is they are also phenomenal at looking deeper in the draft and not solely relying upon that number 7 overall pick or that number 3 overall pick. They do a very good job of looking down the line and being able to draft guys that maybe others would overlook. And so I'm not worried. If we were to trade back in the draft, I'm not worried. Last year, I would have been very worried because I didn't trust Matt Patricia. I didn't trust Bob Quinn. Looking at Brad Holmes, looking at Dorsey, I do trust the process. I trust the process that they have implemented in other regimes, at other organizations, and so I am very much looking forward to seeing how it goes down here. So if they were to come in and with the 7th overall pick, trade back with the New England Patriots, as much as hearing that initially, it feels like I just sucked on an entire bag of sour Skittles and my mouth is raw and I hate life because it's the Patriots. I'm not going to deny it because it's a great move, especially if we're able to pick up a 2nd round draft pick this year and potentially a 3rd round draft pick next year for that trade. I'm totally okay with that because you look at New England is looking for that next quarterback. There's a lot of rumors, there's talk about them looking to Mac Jones in the future. And for them to be able to swoop in, maybe Mac Jones is able to make it to 15. However, looking at some of the teams that are in dire need of quarterbacks that are going to be pushing for that, would Mac Jones make it to 15? Really, they could solidify that draft pick by going up to 7. We move down to 15. We also acquire more draft capital for next year. Really, that's where we're going to have, I think, a big bang is next season in the draft. So looking at them, if they really do want Mac Jones, it's a viable option and one that I'm okay with. The second one that I'm okay with really is the Washington Football Team. Washington is in a pickle when it comes to the quarterback position as well. And if they wish to grab a guy like Trey Lance, I'm hearing that in Washington, if that was somebody that they did want, then they could move down to 7. They jump right in front of Carolina because I believe that Carolina will be looking for a quarterback. They were willing to get rid of Bridgewater, right? They tried to trade with us. With that being said, if that is the case, if they are actually looking for a quarterback, then they move down to get in front of Carolina. And then they're able to pick up maybe Trey Lance, maybe it's Justin Fields. As the draft is getting closer and closer, this is where so much of the fun is. Where are these guys going to go? Who's picking up who? Looking at Washington, I would want to trade back to 19 in order to acquire a 2nd round pick this year and a 2nd round pick in the 2022 draft. Now, a lot of the reason why I'm going to push so much and be so bold and try to get as much as I can get out of this is simply because looking at Micah Parsons, he could get picked up well before 19. And if that's the case, then we lose out there. That's a bummer. I think he'll make it to at least 15. I don't know if he'll make it to 19 with Washington, and I really don't think that he drops all the way down to 24 if we were to trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers. If we traded with the Steelers, so much of my thought here is Big Ben. How much longer does Big Ben have? Is he even going to be next year's future? I look at Big Ben and I think that is just a ticking time bomb. Looking at Pittsburgh, I don't think Micah Parsons makes it down to 24, and so in that regard, I'm not as eager to jump on trading back to 24 with Pittsburgh. I don't love that, so I would push for a 2022 first-round pick from the Pittsburgh Steelers and a 2023 second-round pick from the Steelers. I would push the envelope as hard and as far as possible with Pittsburgh in order to allow them, if they're really looking for a future franchise quarterback, to swoop into 7 to potentially pick up a guy like Justin Fields. You know, maybe even Mac Jones ahead of the Patriots. I don't see Trey Lance going to Pittsburgh. It doesn't feel right. So looking at these 3 options, I would be willing to trade back with one of these 3 teams, but with each team and each slot that we are dropping further back in the draft, I'm going to push to I would want to see the Lions acquire a greater draft pick the following year. All in all, I think it's really possible. I think that trading back is a viable option for the Lions, and I trust Holmes doing it simply because of his track record. Simply because of his track record drafting in the 2nd round and in the 3rd round and finding these guys that are undervalued later in the draft. That's going to be big for the Lions as we begin this rebuilding scenario. But you tell me, how do you feel about the Detroit Lions trading back? Do you think it's a viable option? With which teams would you be willing to trade back with? And what do you want in return? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I look forward to reading it. And as always, I'll catch you next time on Let's Talk Lions.